Okay, so now we're back. We've got our 3 pieces wrapped in newspaper here. Newspaper is still inside. Okay, and now we want to put these 3 pieces together. We want to do this while the clay is still moist, so don't allow the pieces to set up and become really leather hard before you attach them together. Okay, so I've left the piece open-ended here, newspaper inside. I've got enough there. Let's see, I think I might make it a little shorter on this side just so it doesn't have such a tapered appearance. It's got kind of a dune sandworm look to it right now. I think I'll trim off a little bit that I don't need there. Okay. So yeah, this side, I've got this kind of edge sticking out here. Take off a little there. Okay. So once again, we're going to add our slip on there. Okay. Before we slip the other side, I'm actually going to use that to place in there. Also, that would kind of stamp it so I know where to put more slip on the surface of the piece that I want to attach that on there. Do the same thing on this side. Give it a little stamp. Okay, go ahead and score. Doo-doo. Start on this end. Okay, curve that forward just a little bit. I'm just going to gently tuck those pieces in. Okay, blend it a little bit. Get a nice seal. I'm going to do the same on the back here. I'm bending those forward just a little bit towards the inside of the piece here, just to give that more of an organic look. Like those old telephones that were curved. Okay. I can already tell from feeling in the back, I need to reinforce the joints in the back a little bit. So I'm going to carefully pick the whole thing up and just move it around a little bit at a time. If I tried to pick this up from the center and suspend it, those 2 pieces would drop off. So I can see that I've got gaps back here. I'm going to take a little extra clay. We're going to reinforce those and blend those on. I think I've got enough clay back here, so I'm going to go ahead and blend that. Take a good look at that. Okay. Okay, this side, got a little, so curl that up a little bit. Take our slip. Okay, when you're attaching little pieces like this that don't have newspaper inside to support them, you want to be real careful when you're putting them on. Let's tip that up a little bit so you can see it in the light. So you can see right there, there's no newspaper, there's just a hollow form. If I were to press really hard as I attach the little slab of clay on there that I'm going to put on, that can cause a divot. So I just want to be real careful. Just doing a really thin piece of clay here, about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and just pat that lightly on so those seams are connected. And I'm just super gentle. Blend the bottom, I've got that tipped up. And if you've got your mud tool, just gently take that and just blending enough on the surface there that I'm attaching those pieces. I'm not really worried about it looking super tidy at this point because we're going to tidy up and do our details when this is leather hard. Right now we're just roughing it together, making sure our pieces stick together. Okay. Doing all of the correcting, detailing, shaping, and carving is kind of a next day project. Okay, and a lot of people always ask me about the little cracks and things that form in these. I usually like them. I actually kind of like what clay does when it misbehaves. But a lot of people don't. But if you do have pieces of clay that form these little surface cracks on here, they're not structural. They're just from the surface of the clay as it bends across the surface. Sometimes it'll open up on the surface. But if you want to fix those, just take a little bit of slip on your finger and just wipe that in there until you fill in the crack there. And if you want to, you can polish and blend that out later. Like I said, I like them. Not everybody has my taste. But if you want to fix things and polish them up, just use a little slip, just as the minimal amount that you can get away with. Don't take like a handful of slip and like slather it all over the top of this because it's going to make it really muddy. And you can even lose the integrity of your shape. It'll look really strange. Okay. So I'm going to gently turn that over and see how we did on our seams back here. This is another cheat. You can just take your sponge, put that under there, hold that up while you're working. Take a little more slip and just reinforce that down there. That's going to be holding a little bit of weight. Okay, so you can see a lot of this is more of an art than a science. You're just learning how clay behaves. If you've done other projects with me, we've learned tar paper slab technique, we've learned coil technique, we've done a little pinching with a bas relief technique. This is just kind of expanding on those skills and learning how to judge for yourself what your clay needs by looking at it and feeling it. So if you have areas that feel like they're going to fall off and it's super heavy and it's weak, but you just know a little bit of clay will fix that. You can go in there with a coil and just reinforce that. Okay, make sure it's a nice thin coil. Always keeping the rule of a 1/2 inch in your mind. Okay, so I can let that go. It'll stay right there while I'm working. Hold that weight, keep it from tearing itself apart while the clay is still wet. Okay. Since our clay is thin enough, I know as long as I keep thin pieces of clay that I'm layering on there, that I'm staying under 1/2 inch. So if you have made your clay really thick or on the edge of 1/2 inch and you're adding clay on top of there, you will have to come in and carve it out later. Make sure that it's aerated in some way so it's not too thick to fire in the kiln. Okay, so at this point, this is a good time to put my name on there because this is the bottom. And the bottom is also a really good place to put the holes that you're going to need to make sure that this fires successfully. So if I were to fire this now like this would be the perfect bomb. The kiln tech would hate me forever. So at some point you're going to want to put holes in there, and you're going to want a hole for each section that has newspaper in it and is separate from each other. So if you were to build all one shape out of newspaper and just put one slab of clay around it, and it was just all together like a balloon on the inside, and you didn't have any stops and starts, you could get away with just having one hole. But when you have a section like this, which has 2 or more sections, Every section needs its own hole. Okay, just need one. Doesn't need to be large, but it does need to go all the way through to the newspaper. So you should feel the spring of the newspaper when you push in like that. Okay. There we go. I like this, but I think I'm going to bend it a little more. Exaggerate the curvature there, like a little more like a phone. You can do that because it's got the newspaper in there and it's going to keep that clay from caving in as I'm manipulating it. Okay. So when we come back, we'll do a little more sculpting, details, cleaning up, and carving and blending. But for now, for your first day, this is what you're going to get, and it came together pretty quickly. So we'll go ahead and wrap that up and just let it set up until we're ready to come back.